Anybody else? Tia, have you got any apologies?
No, I haven't received any apologies. Except for Mark.
Yeah.
Was it changed in the, I don't know if Ray has the same kind of diary as we've got, but does he, I surely hope he hasn't gone to Oxford.
Councillor, it was changed in the diary, and I did
there he
send
is.
an email to
It looks like
everybody.
he's just arriving.
Thank goodness. Okay, because I haven't looked at it in the last few hours, but just even yesterday it was, yeah, just looking at it now. Okay, no, that's great. I'm sure you'd be onto that, Tia, but I just had a terrible thought there for a moment because we always have Ray.
Okay.
Glad you're not in Oxford, Ray. You're here, good. Okay.
Right, somebody'd like to move, we accept the apology for Mark Brown, please. Sarah, thank you. Seconder. Nikki, thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Public forum, we have no public forum, I presume.
No, Mr. Chairperson, we don't.
Right. Conflicts of interest. Nothing? Okay. Confirmation of minutes of the Oxford-Ohoka Community Board, 6th of April 2022. Somebody move their true record, please. Thank you, Wendy. Seconder. Ray, thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. No deputations and presentations, I assume? No.
Mr. Chairperson, you need to go back to matters arising.
Oh, sorry, yes, missed
Yes.
that. Matters arising. I've got one, Ohoka Meadows Pond. Ray, did you find anything out about that?
No, I've looked at the Ohoka drainage map, and it appears that they're on it, but the drainage system going through Ohoka Meadows isn't part of the council maintained network. So I'm not sure whether that has been relayed back to the residents, but it doesn't look like the pond that they're talking about is actually an issue for council to maintain.
All right, thank you. Any further matters arising? Shirley?
Yes, it's just that I talked on behalf of Kedron today at the hearings for the annual plan, and I'm not very happy with the reply, well, with the comments that was received. Evidently, something to do with the speed limit has to go to Cabinet, yet if you read Ted Dring's letter that he got from Waka Katahi, that the council can aim for it. That doesn't say they have to put all those things in. Mayor Gordon actually said he would arrange for a Zoom meeting, and I'm wondering, did that happen? And I would really like an answer, but why is Cabinet involved at this stage?
Through you, Mr. Chairperson, I've made a note of that, Shirley, and I will follow that up and report back to the board as soon as possible.
Thank you, dear. Any further matters arising? Nikki?
Just Shirley, if I may, through you, Mr. Chair, just to address that, it was because in the letter that Ted got back from Waka Katahi, it said that currently They don't require you to put infrastructure in place to slow down traffic before you try to change the limit, but they are changing it. It hasn't actually happened yet. So the new regulations that they're proposing haven't actually happened. And I think that's what he was referencing. But I'm not a pro in that area, but that was my understanding as to what he was talking about with cabinet. But I think that's looking actually pretty positive, to be honest. But yeah, does that make more sense?
No, it doesn't, because this has been on the radar for over 7 years. So it could have been done a long time ago. So that is my question. Why has it taken this long for it to get to this?
My only response to that would be that they were under the impression that was how, because they had gotten that. Look, I'm not going to relitigate this with you, Shirley. I'm on your side. So I'm just saying that what the mayor was actually referring to was, in fact, that the new change in legislation has not yet taken place to our knowledge. And when it does, then that will remove that impediment, and then we can go back and have another bite. So I'm with you. I'm on your side. It's okay.
Shall we move on to deputation?
Sorry,
Shall we move on to deputations, or is there more questions?
is there any further matters arising? Doesn't appear to be, so we'll move on. No deputations, presentations, no adjourned business, no reports. That's a first. Correspondence. Tia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Through you, we received an email from the Mandeville Sports Club. As you may recall, the board granted them $477 for a life members board. They have now purchased the board, but the two people who they actually wanted to put on the board doesn't actually want to go on the board because I don't know why, but they are now requesting if they could spend the remainder of the funds on engraving a plaque with these two members' names on it. And I've spoken to Tracy and I've spoken to Kay, and I don't see a problem with that because it's basically for the same thing. The club will just have to be made aware that if they then at a later date wants to inscribe the life members board, they won't be entitled to any more funds. I don't know what the board's feeling is around that.
Wendy.
Thank you. Just bring up on this, the two people that they wanted to put on the board, honours board, was very instrumental in getting Mandeville up and running. But they're both pretty proud people, and they simply do not want, they said they've been given enough now and they don't want their names to go on the honours board. So that's fair enough. If they don't want to do that, then so this other way of doing putting whatever it's called, a plaque instead, to go under a tree or something. I don't know what they're going to do with it. I think that's what they're going to do, plant a couple of trees or something. That's fine. It's up to the two gentlemen concerned if they want their name on an honours board or not, and they've said no. But that doesn't mean to say that honours board won't be used later, because there are other people that could go on that board very easily, but they just wanted to respect the two people that had been heavily involved in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Any other comments? Right, I believe that we should approve them spending the excess money on a plaque. Somebody would like to move that? Sarah, thank you. Seconder? Shirley, thank you. Any further discussion? No? All in favour? Against? Carried, I guess.
Well, I will abstain, please.
Okay.
Then through you, Mr. Chairperson, the second piece of correspondence is just a letter in response to the Oxford-Ohoka Community Board submission for the long-term plan. And it was previously emailed to all the members. So this, we just need to receive the letter.
Right. Thank you. And I've got a couple of, there's a letter from the Ohoka Residents Association thanking the board for their contribution of $3,000, I think it was, towards landscaping and finalising the, I don't know what it's called. Help me out here, Mickey.
The Flying Fox, yes.
That's the one. Yeah.
So excited. Anybody want to put their name down for an auction for the first ride?
No. And I see on email today that the pea gravel and soil have been delivered to finish off. So that's a good thing. And there's also a letter from the Mayor regarding submission to the annual plan, which was in amongst this agenda or after the agenda. So recommendation that the correspondence be received, please. Mickey, second, Wendy, all in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
We just have a bit of discussion about the response to the long-term plan, please, Doug.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, just firstly, it's really disappointing that it's a year late. But the section on the Oxford sewer scheme doesn't make a lot of sense to me because we've asked for a bit of a breakdown in costs. In our question, we asked for why is this expensive to run? What's the proposed for the substantial depreciation that the council's accumulating? And they say the total operating expenditure is approximately 900,000, comprising of asset management at 128, 24,000 in reticulation maintenance, and pump maintenance at 20,000. There's a fair gap between 900,000 and those three figures, I would have thought. Yeah, I just don't think it's a great update and a great response from council staff, to be honest. So I was wondering if we could have a follow-up on that through you, Tia.
I will.
Thank you.
The thing about depreciation on these assets is that the council is required by law to retain that depreciation. I'm not quite sure why that is the case, whereas in private business you don't have to retain depreciation. It's just part of your bookwork. So I'm a bit in the dark about that.
But they even say like there's 1.9 million of retentions over the 10 years of the long-term plan expected to be accumulated, but they've only got plans to spend 1 million of that. And currently there's 375,000 in the renewals budget. So it just sort of, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. I think there's a fair bit of information missing, to be honest.
Shirley?
I thought one of the questions that we asked was how much money was in the depreciation account. Is that the renewals account? Because if that's the case, $375,000 is not a lot, especially when they said, when we asked once before, over $200 of each person that belongs to the surge was paying over $200. And that's been for quite some time. So I would have expected to be a lot more than $375,000.
Doug,
Yes, Brendy.
there's a difference between renewal and depreciation. Depreciation is over the life of the sewer system, so that when it reaches its life, then you've got an amount of money that can replace it. The renewal system is upgrading the work, the bits and pieces that need to be upgraded for development of more people coming on board, and plus wear and tear.
Well, then how much is in the depreciation account? That's what we did ask for.
Well, I can't answer that, but that's something that they can let you know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further comments on that? I guess we've got to wait for Tia to get an answer for us. Thank you, Tia. Chairperson's report. Been a fairly quiet month for me. North Canterbury Neighbourhood Support has changed their meeting day from the third Thursday of the month to the first Thursday of the month, so there has been no meeting last month, but we've got one tomorrow. I had 3 ADSACS services to attend. Ohoka, Oxford and West Ayrton. I felt the Ohoka one was the most comprehensive. And today I presented answers to any questions on the board's submission of the annual plan. That was my lot for this month. Somebody move that report be received, please. Ray, thank you. Second, Thomas, thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, matters for information, items 10.1 to 10.6. 10.7, sorry. Somebody move that these reports, these matters be accepted. Thank you. Shirley, second, Thomas, thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Yes. Tia.
Through you, Mr. Chairperson, may I please ask, Andy Coker is here
Yes.
to brief the board on the mandible stockpile. Could we please deal with Andy before we go into members' information exchange?
Yep.
If that's
We'll do
okay
that.
with the board members. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's right. Andy.
Hello. Just bear with me while I share a screen. I've just done a very quick PowerPoint presentation, just really highlighting the key areas of where we are, where we're heading. You will note that I included you in a notice for information that largely talks around the same thing. So hopefully it's a recap, and then if you have any questions, you can fire away at the end. Let me share the screen. So I'll move some windows around. Right, can everybody see what I'm sharing now?
Yep.
Oh, this is terrible when you have to slide all the windows around. Okay, right. So works today, as you're aware, we've been working through, we've had a preliminary contamination assessment completed, and as you're aware, I think Chris Brown presented to you guys in terms of what those preliminary findings were around a bound asbestos found. In terms of progress, we've gone from there. We've had a drone survey done to establish an accurate assessment of the volume. That's now obviously been complete, and we've got a roughly just under 3,000 cubic meters of material that we've got to deal with. We've developed our resource consent application, and that's been submitted and that's been accepted for processing. So that is now in process. It's been in process for approximately 10 days. As you may be aware, that's a standard 20-day process depending on RFIs. The positive side of that is we haven't had any RFIs to date, so that's pretty good news. I did have some preliminary conversations with the consenting team as well, just to sort of head a lot of the questions off at the pass, with a on-site meeting with them, the planning team and ECAN themselves. ECAN, in terms of what their involvement, they're wanting a watching brief. They are comfortable with the contamination that the preliminary assessment has identified, and that we've had some negative results on chemicals and metals within the stockpile. They do want a watching brief just in case when we continue to do our detailed site investigation, we do find anything of that type, because that may change our potential methodology for total disposal. In terms of the detailed site investigation, that did start as planned on Friday last week. They've got about 50% of the way through that on-site testing process. In terms of a quick précis of what they're doing and how they're testing, they've got an excavator on site. They are digging through the center of each small stockpile across its length to effectively individually take samples out of each stockpile, so we can identify that we've still got just the bound asbestos contamination there, or potentially whether we've got anything else that we might need to deal with. The initial verbal feedback from them is that it's very good. It's still in line with the preliminary assessment, and they are finding some stockpiles that are just clean fill, which is good news. Unfortunately, we are slightly behind that because the engineer that's doing the assessment on site has tested positive over the weekend. So we are slightly delayed. They are delayed by a week, but we are intending to get an ETA of site works complete by the 11th of May, which is the following Wednesday. Then it will be taken to the labs for testing, which is approximately a 10-day turnaround, and then we've got a report and write-up and evaluation back to myself for review. The result of that site investigation will allow us to develop the methodology. They will be developed in parallel, so we can try and gain some momentum on where we are in terms of disposal. And I've agreed with ECAN to keep them informed all the way through that process. I had a small meeting with them last week as well. They are still very comfortable with where we are and really pleased, and they have had a number of they've been contacted by a couple of people within the district asking questions around it, and they've been reporting directly back to those people that they are comfortable. After that, we expect to receive the resource consent approval. So hopefully within a couple of weeks, we'll receive that subject to the RFIs. And then we will be drafting reports for approvals to council in terms of the next steps. In regards to communications, you will obviously notice that the notice for information has gone out. That when I delivered that directly to residents on North Ayr Road that had contacted us directly with concerns. I've had feedback from all of those people comfortable with what has been done in terms of the testing process to date. They will get further updates from me as soon as the testing process is finished to confirm and to walk them through the methodology in terms of disposal to ensure that everybody is comfortable with everything that's being put in place, and their assurance that what we're doing is compliant. In terms of the testing, everybody was very comfortable. We have air testing on all the fences to ensure that there's no transmission across, dampening of the stockpiles as the excavation occurs. And for the board, the testing results that's been done on day one, there were no registered asbestos in the air monitoring at all. So again, the precautions put in place are working. The public health side of this issue is being controlled. I will circulate a May notice after that testing is done, and then an update in terms of target deliverables. You'll note in the April notice that I've tried to identify a placeholder for a public meeting, just in case residents are concerned about the methodology, where we get to with that. That is still probably an intention to do it in that way. It will all depend on what comes out of the testing and how that methodology develops in terms of when that occurs. At the moment, I've sort of got a placeholder of the end of May. It's likely due to this COVID issue that we've got that I might have to push that out till early June. But I will come out to the main parties involved to ensure that we've got alignment of dates so everybody can attend with a clear agenda in terms of what will be discussed at that meeting. That's pretty much in a nutshell where we are, and in terms of what works we've all done today and where we're going to go, where we're planning to go to. We're earmarking a potential period in terms of where we can safely dispose of the material in terms of when that hits. This is all depending on council decisions. But we're looking at sort of mid-June to early July to be at a point where we have reached all of our obligations under the compliance, i.e. resource consents and approvals to get the material underway. But we are in a good position. Obviously, we've got the polymer seal on it. It's in a nice stable state, so relatively low risk. All the fencing is there. And we've got a good amount of vegetation growth over that area now too, which all helps to encapsulate the material that we've got. So that's my presentation. That's the update. I'm open to any questions that anybody may have. Yes, right.
Hopefully that's unmuted. Look, thank you for all of that. That sounds very encouraging. It looks like all of the residents who are in the near vicinity have been informed. Is there any thought of it going out in the media so that the whole of Mandeville are aware of what's going on?
I think we will likely probably send something out by the comms team. The notice, the April notice was effectively prioritized because of my testing to expedite the testing. The methodology update in terms of where we are is very likely to go out by the comms team to the wider group.
Okay. And the site itself, is it actually inside the boundary or is it on the road reserve?
It is actually inside. Unfortunately, it's sitting inside the boundary of the domain.
So will it continue to be a hail site as far as Environment Canterbury are concerned?
No, it won't. Once we get to the point of removing, what we will be required to do is to scrape a further 200 to 300 mil from the existing topsoil, from the original platform, and then we will need to introduce clean fill and then reseed. That's all been factored into part of my methodology and my plan. Even before liaising with ECAN, that's a pretty standard process. So effectively, we will bring it back to what it was.
Okay. And are there litigation processes underway to do with this?
Yeah, I can't talk too much about it, but I can provide you the assurances that the legal process is underway. It is happening and occurring in the background, as well as an investigation related to the planning RMA breaches with the planning team.
Okay. Thank you, Andy.
Doug, you're on mute.
I'm guessing it's my turn. Is that all right, Doug?
Yep.
Andy, I just wanted to ask you, just following on from that last question of Ray's, because he just about touched on it. Could you please clarify for us, there are legal issues at play here right now. Could you please clarify for us what can and cannot be communicated with the public?
Well, having spoken to the our legal team, at the moment, we are still, the legal teams are all waiting for some of the third parties to engage. And whilst that is still occurring, we cannot compromise the process in terms of obviously having party or going out into the media and being communicated to the wider public. That is the difficulty at this point in time. This can be quite a long, protracted process, and that's what we've been told. Hence why we are sort of progressing with an understanding of where we're going to end up in terms of true cost, timelines, etc. Doesn't necessarily answer your question, Nikki. Sorry, but I have been sort of assured that we really can't go through and talk around the finer details of it, because it's likely that it will be available at one point, but I think once all parties are all talking to each other and there's some kind of dialogue going on.
Thank you for that. Because there's a lot going on with this, and all of the community board members will be about this, and it's really important that we all understand where we should be standing so that we don't compromise any of this, because we really want to get the best outcome here. And
yeah, I suppose if I can jump in terms of, we've got three legal representation. We've got council legal representation, Mandeville Sports Club have their own, and then the planning team in terms of ESU and the enforcement of their RMA have their own. So we've got it's quite intricate in terms of how this has all got to happen in the order that it's got to happen. And likewise, we're the same in terms of we're having to work quite closely with ESU. So even our legal process, because we're going to do this in parallel, doesn't compromise each other in terms of the ability to find liability.
Right. And Andy, so would it be wise then, if anybody gets any queries about this, to direct them to yourself?
Yes, please, because then I can and seek the advice from our legal team to ensure that I don't effectively do something wrong.
All right, cool. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Any further?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, Doug.
Yeah.
Hi, Andy. Two quick questions. Firstly, as you're going through and testing these piles, obviously the polymer seal is going to be disturbed and isn't going to be there anymore. So is that going to be reapplied at the end of the testing, or what's the plan around that? And at this stage, do you have any idea when the work to start getting rid of it is going to start?
Firstly, what the plan is to effectively make good, and then we will get ProTrans backing to polymer over the areas that have been exposed to, again, in fact, seal the pile. And then in terms of when the plan is, the process, if we had uninterrupted process, we could get to the point where we could start to remove the material in mid-June, early July. And that's just the compliance process element of it. The bit that may stall that will be the decision around the legal element. So we hope that we can get all of the compliance process. We've then got the legal element up to a point where council can make a decision whether to proceed and remove the material and seek to claim costs, or whether a dialogue is occurring that allows that mechanism to happen in a different way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you. And I just like to comment that the communication has been a lot better as well. So that's another positive as well. Thank you.
Yeah, no, hence why it was very quick to get something out, and we didn't go out onto the comms team Facebook pages. I wanted to ensure that if there was an excavator in that space, that I was front-footing that and giving a good week in advance. So I appreciate everybody sort of grabbing what I sent out and then that allowing me to go out to those local residents, because they'd been quite keen and to understand what was going on, and actually had followed up in the interim too. So I really kind of knew that I needed to keep them on board, and I've had good responses back from them. So I'm comfortable that I can that there's a dialogue between myself and those local residents that have been really concerned, and I can continue that. Now they've got a point to come to me, and I can keep on top of it.
Thanks for that.
Andy, is there any comeback on the contractor that supplied this material in the first place?
That is what the ESU and the planning team are looking at as part of the RMA breach, because they would be involved in terms of the breaches that it's all linked to the original owner, and then the haulage company, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the bit that I don't know whether we will ever, I don't know whether we're going to get to that. Obviously, there is clear breaches that occur, but that's the bit that I can't talk about at this point, because I need to try and allow them to do their work.
Okay.
Doug, can I just interrupt there for a moment,
Yeah,
please?
over.
Look, can we just got to make really clear here, there are two processes happening. There is one that is about landowner dealing with the issue, and taking what legal advice and action needs to resolve the issue of who did what and costs. Then there's this other thing that is around from the planning perspective in terms of were there breaches of our district plan rules, of the national planning guidance, those rules and regulations that we have. And that's where the planning team are looking through that. They are aligned but separate processes. And it's really important from the compliance, when you're talking about compliance, from the investigating any potential breaches of district plan, for example, that happens very separate. It wouldn't matter if it was council or anyone else. We have our processes that we go through. So we do that independently of Andy and the work he is doing in terms of dealing with the issue and thinking about costs and where do they fall. So thus they are separate processes, and of course really important that there not be chitter chatter and anything that could compromise any party's position or understanding, because that is not where we are currently at. That is what is being worked through at the moment. So it's in that process. So hopefully that clarifies matters.
Yeah. Thank you, Tracy. Any further questions or comments?
Sarah
No?
has a question.
Sorry, Tim.
Sarah
I think,
has a question.
sorry, I think my questions have pretty much been answered. I guess my question, the one that maybe hasn't, is it the landowners, being the council, that go through the resource consent process, or is it the lessees that go through the resource consent process?
For disposal?
Yeah.
It'll be it's the landowners, so it's just as council that we need to take that through.
Right. Okay. So at this currently, it's council's responsibility as the landowner to be doing this whole process, and at the end of it, whoever's liable for that cost will be determined at a later date.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. We have a duty of care as the landowner to remediate or to make every attempt to remediate this land. If the cost associated within the litigation, the liability side of it is separate now. In terms of obviously the consent, the resource consent and ECAN, they are looking at council to expedite the remediation because it is on our land, regardless of any lease agreement arrangement with Mandeville Sports.
Oh, right. Okay.
But we are working with Mandeville and we're working closely with ECAN and the planning team. So we will not incur any further costs associated with the remedial works without an approval process and council being informed.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Andy. It's been very informative. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Right, we'll move on to members' information exchange. Start in the top left corner with Sherwood.
I've done nothing much, just attended a museum meeting and let them know just about that we have got funding if they've got any projects. Other than that, nothing much, just hibernating.
Thomas.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, no, I haven't done a lot either, really, to be honest. There's been no Ashley Gorge advisory group meetings. There's been no Pearson Park advisory group meetings. I have had a couple of people email me and give donations to the Ashley Gorge advisory group over the last month, which is quite good. They've all had positive feedback and really enjoying the walking track and I think the native bird life was one of the compliments, and the other one was the quality of the walking tracks available. So yeah, that was really good feedback, I think, for that group, and I forwarded that on. The Oxford Community Trust did a Easter, not a promotion, sort of a morale building exercise through the I've Got Your Back campaign. They gave out Easter hampers to all of the businesses and community groups in Oxford with just a selection of Easter eggs and things like that, and a card saying thank you for from the community for all the work you've done over the last couple of months, and that was really well received. I think they gave out 35 of those over the week before Easter, which was really good. And again, I think a lot of the business owners in particularly we're really pleased, because I think it's been a pretty hard time for lots of our retail business over the last couple of months. And other than that, I attended the Anzac service at Oxford. I saw you there, Doug. I didn't get a chance to catch up with you, but yeah, I attended that. It was quite cold and quite short, I thought, but yeah, it was quite a nice morning for it though. But other than that, it's been very quiet. So that's me.
Thank you for that, Thomas. I'm sorry I didn't spot you. I was a little disappointed, but you were there, so that's good. Thank you. Sarah.
Yeah, much the same. Not a lot has been happening here. I did on Friday do the deputation to ECAN in regards to their annual plan. So that's about all I have done. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Ray.
Yes, I attended the Ohoka Anzac ceremony. It was very moving, well attended by the community, and some very good speakers there as well. Just an update on the Mandeville Village. I drove past there today and I saw that the concrete pads have been put down for the barbecue tables, which is very pleasing to see. The tables, I guess, will be fixed to the concrete pads in due course. Just a couple of questions that I have, just around the maintenance of that particular area. I see there used to be rubbish bins around the Mandeville village, but they've since been removed. Is there any intention of council to maybe re-establish some rubbish bins over there? Because there'll be a lot of families who'll be having their fish and chips over there, and you taking advantage of the barbecue tables, and they'll need somewhere to put their rubbish. I guess if you are able to make some inquiries there, would be great. The Mandeville village, there's a lot of activity there on the eastern side, where I did see several months ago some resource consent applications there for car parking, and some concept plans for some expansion of that particular area. But I'm just wondering which particular plan are they using there, because it's very hard to see from what's happened so far. My understanding was that it was initially, until the proposed plan was, or the operative plan, the proposed plan became an operative plan, that they were going to wait until there was a zone change to be looking at introducing further shopping, and that in the meantime, in the interim, they were going to be expanding the car parking. I'm just wondering if there was any update on what type of car parking it was, whether it was just a gravelled area, and what size were the car parks going to be, because that's been an issue that's been around the initial development there, where the car parking has been inadequate for what had been developed there. So it would be interesting to find out there what they're doing at the moment. And the other thing, the final thing, was the Mandeville walkways. I've spoken to a number of residents and a couple of developers about the walkways, cycleways, most of which lead to the Mandeville Sports Centre. And I did a walk around with a couple of residents the other day, trying to work out what was going on there. Some of them, for example, from Braeburn, lead quite nicely into the Mandeville Sports Centre and have been well thought out and have been finished off, and is a really good access for the residents. But some of the newer developments have got walkways and cycleways which seem to go nowhere, and they're either stopped by a fence or by a drain. And what I'd like to do is to maybe spend some time either with green space or with planners, and have a look at that overall walkway concept for Mandeville and what was intended, and what we can do about making the pedestrian and cycling access around Mandeville a lot better. I've also had an approach from a few people in Millfield who some own an access way and are troubled because people think it's a council walkway, and others who thought it was a council walkway and have been told that no, it's not. And this is a relatively new part of Millfield, and it seems quite logical that people would walk down this particular space to get to the Mandeville village now that it's there. But it would be really good to meet up with council staff and see what the overall concept is for pedestrian and cycleways around Mandeville. If that could be organised, would be absolutely fantastic. But that's all I've got.
Thank you, Ray. Councillors, who are we having first? I'll decide. Wendy.
Well, you've got my little written report. I've just done an update on bits and pieces that are happening. Council, we've been really busy, mainly by Zoom. And I did have a dog classification hearing last week, and and it was really quite nice that we'd go into the chambers to do that, because there was only a handful of us there. So I just sort of felt like I was back in the living land of living again, because it's been just sitting looking at a screen's not great for a lot of meetings, and actually quite tiring because they've been long days. So, but no, we've just been extremely busy, and it'd be lovely some stage when we'd be allowed to go and have a talk with the staff again. And I'd be really appreciative of that, because that's something we've badly missed. So if anybody's got any question about anything I've written on my report there, then they can just ask. Okay. But I would also like to say, Shirley and Doug, thank you very much for your submissions tonight. Shirley on behalf of Ted Drone, and Doug, thank you on behalf of Community Board.
That's all right. Pleasure. Thank you. Any questions of Wendy? No. Right, Nikki.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I thought it was good for Wendy to go first, because she did send a really good wee report through. So I thought that probably covered off a few things. As she said, it's been fairly busy with Zoom meetings and that, but so the usual council meetings and briefings in that. But we also were fortunate enough to have a hiatus week between Easter and Anzac. And of course, sprinkle a bit of COVID in there, and it's not made for the most productive time, but you know, that's life. Just a couple of things I guess I'll talk about. On the 13th of April, we had the Arohatea Te Awa meeting, which is the reason I bring this up regularly actually is because, for instance, in our LTP and annual plan submissions, we talk about riparian planting and whatnot, and that would most likely be the vehicle that we will get more planting done. But right now they're working on a branch of the CAM that runs through Tuahiwi in a loop. But it's proceeding, I'll say proceeding slowly, but we're getting there. And it's just really good to, be getting some plants in the ground and getting the work done, if however slowly. On the 24th of April and 25th, I too attended the first the Ohoka Anzac ceremony on the 24th, and then Oxford and West Earton on Anzac Day itself. And it really is, it's a real honor and a pleasure to go to those ceremonies and lay the wreaths on behalf of those who have served and fallen. I always get a lump in my throat whenever I go to those things, every single one of them. And they all have their own flavor, their own feel to them. And moving right along. But yeah, they were, even though they were short and sweet this year, they were still, it was great that we were actually able to have them in person. So I was appreciative of that. Couple interesting things for you guys. The UNR meeting, Utilities and Roading meeting on the 26th, they had a report on the flood events that we've just had, and they logged 598 service requests just over the recent flood events. And that's 75% of our usual annual amount. We usually get about 800 of those, and they got 598 just for that. And then with the high groundwater and saturated catchments resulting in further service requests logged, they've ended up in the last 12 months with 1,500 service requests, which is like more than, almost double the usual annual amount. So they are a bit stretched at the moment, to say the least, but getting through it. Obviously, we've had some real events, that's for sure. Also that evening, there was the Y Youth Council meeting, and Waimakariri Youth Council, two different things. And we had as our guest speaker Hillary Cooper, who is this year's current Waimakariri Youth MP, who is working with Matt Ducey this year, and she's got a really interesting project going on for youth driver licensing. Because it's kind of a convoluted process, and it's kind of confusing for youth who are trying to traverse that. So I think the things that she's talking about make a really worthy project, and I'll be interested to see where she gets with that. On the 27th, we had the Alcohol and Drug Harm Prevention Steering Group meeting that I'm part of, and we had as a guest to that, we had the Field Intelligence Officer for the Waimakariri Police. And just amongst some of the things we discussed, it was interesting to note that the drug problem in the area, particularly meth, it's not growing or shrinking, it's just staying consistent. There's evidence of it in wastewater and that, but it's not really sort of changing. But and which I guess is good that it's not growing, and it's also not looking like it's originating from here. But you know, it's still meth is still the biggest driver of adult crime. So it's something that, you know, we really want to keep an eye out on. But and on the 2nd of May, I went to Matt Ducey's public meeting down at Mandeville regarding the North Canterbury connectivity issues. That was quite a good meeting, actually. He had representatives there from Spark, Enable, and AmiriNet, just talking about sort of where they were at with their various initiatives and that. And I suppose a couple things of note were that, AmiriNet explained sort of who they were, where they're coming from, and about the rollout, and how you, you know, if you're in the area, how you might connect, or perhaps future ability to connect. But I would just say, if you know anybody that's interested in looking into that falls in the area that they're looking to roll new fiber installation out, to get in touch with AmiriNet. And if you're not in there, get in touch with them anyway, because you might be able to actually make something happen. And Graham from Spark was interesting as well. He just a few things. He said that Spark was they were moving towers into tower companies so that they can increase investment opportunities and attract some more funding. So they're actually moving their assets around in a way that they can actually raise some capital and hopefully invest more in the infrastructure we desperately need. One of the interesting things that he said was that current government policy settings are for state highway mobile black spot areas. So whenever they've rolled out new cell phone towers and that to cover the black spots in the recent program that they've just mostly completed, that was for state highway mobile black spot areas, not council roads. So like, say you're out the back of Airwell Forest, you're not on a state highway, too bad, which is not really what we wanted to hear, but we just need to keep knocking on that door. And another interesting thing, they were saying that they are looking to upgrade to 4G. And so if for those people that are out in really rural areas that have horrific cell phone coverage, you know, I'm sure you've all been out in areas and farms and that where it just isn't, you'd have to stand on one leg with your tongue hanging out and the wind blowing the right direction to get coverage. When they upgrade that to 4G, it'll be 4G only coverage. So if you've got an old cell phone, you'll probably need to upgrade, because the people that have a 4G phone, like a newer cell phone, they will actually get a raised level of service. They will actually get better connection. But if those that are on older cell phones will need to upgrade. So it's kind of good to know, because they don't really sort of say that in the line between the lines. So, and the other improvement that they are looking to get, which this is Spark, which 2 Degrees and Vodafone already have, is Wi-Fi calling. So if you're at home, you have stink internet, or rather you have stink cell phone reception, but you have okay internet somehow by some miracle, you can actually get your cell phone calls through your Wi-Fi, which I don't know about you guys, but that would help me immensely. But unfortunately, I'm on Spark, so we have to wait, because they don't know actually when that's going to happen just yet. But yeah, it was a really interesting conversation with the locals and the those in the industry. So I really appreciated that Matt pulled all those guys together, and I think all of the residents that came to that also did. And I took the opportunity to reiterate that is something that I personally believe that better cell phone reception, better connectivity, and internet is really important for productivity, sustainability, and resilience. We need it out in our rural areas. And it's not enough to just say that you have to live in an urban, dense area to get those things, because look at the backbone of our economy is what? The rural zone. So anyway, moving right along from that soapbox, council meeting yesterday. Of interest there is the Butchers Road culvert down this way in Ohoka is to be fixed, and it'll probably be about September. They're looking to order probably a box culvert for that, and it will take that long for them to manufacture it and get it there. But we probably wouldn't be able to do any fixing of it over the winter anyway, because in-stream works, you've got to do them at the right time of year, whenever rivers aren't running high and whatnot. So but I would just like to extend a bouquet again to Joanne, our roading manager, for her response to the residents' request that reached out to me and asked that the Butchers Road culvert be open to foot traffic and cycles. She not only listened, spoke to him and liaised with us, but she actually made it happen. So I'm thrilled with that. It's not, it doesn't have the road open, but at least people can ride a bike safely through or walk their dog or whatever. So that's actually a good outcome in the meantime from where I'm sitting. So, and just as Wendy said, annual plan hearings today and tomorrow. And thank you, Doug and Shirley, for coming and speaking to us. Are there any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, then. I'm sure you've heard enough of my voice for the night then.
Sorry, I missed some of it. My battery ran flat.
Oh, no. You probably knew it all anyway.
Yeah, so I just had to rush around and sort things out. So apology.
My reception's cut out a couple times while I've been sitting here tonight too, so I've missed a couple things, I think. Hence my interest in the telecommunications discussion. And I have fiber.
Right, thank you all. We will move on to consultation projects around Mill. I suggest we better move that we no, we don't. Okay. Thank you for the reports then. Consultation projects, nil. Board funding update. Board discretionary grant at $4,011. General landscaping at 300. No media items. No questions under standing orders. Urgent general business under standing orders, none. The next meeting will be on Wednesday, the 8th of June, 2022 at 7 p.m.
Through you, Doug, just to advise that we are now going back to physical meetings. So the next meeting will actually be as advertised. I can't remember where we're going, but I will let members know.
I don't know whether we can cope with it. Sarah. Did you wave your hand, Sarah? No? Right. We were a bit out with our time, Shirley. So I'll close the meeting and we can move into workshop for members forum if you wish.